Welcome to Unstoppable Stories That Move. I'm your host, Sally Hed Dahlquist. I've traveled all over the world to run marathons and am fascinated by the ordinary people who do extraordinary things. They just won't quit. No matter what life throws at them, they keep going. Mile after mile, challenge after challenge, they find a way to push beyond their limits. So listen as these seemingly normal people share their stories of resilience from the race course and beyond, and inspire us to keep moving forward too. Let's get to it. Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in today. I'm calling in with the unstoppable Aaron Burros. Woo! Yay! Clapping.
Yay.
There's
How you
Aaron.
doing?
I am doing great. We solved our technical issues. All seems to be good now. Aaron is a marathon runner, a transformational coach. He's also known as #running servant and some other really fun nicknames like Big Sexy. But this is not that kind of podcast, so keep it clean, Aaron, okay?
Yeah, that's one of my my names that I keep in my head for myself.
One of his fans called him that. And most recently, you're author of this book called Medal Monday, My Quest to Run 50 Marathons in 50 States in 50 Weeks after being shot 5 times. It's kind of an incredible story.
Not taking 5 shots, but being shot 5 times.
God. And you'll have to read that to find out fully why he's called Big Sexy. In addition to how he got shot. And I've really been looking forward to our chat because, Aaron, you're always so joyful and fun and encouraging.
That's because of my sister from another mister, my god sister Roro. She keep me on the go. So
Keep me on the go.
Yeah, I always gotta have fun because she's always upbeat, smiley, energetic, encouraging. So she's in the room with us, but she's just sitting there listening right now. So I'm gonna probably be a lot more super energetic just because she's around.
Great. You have a fan. I love it. An audience.
Yes, an audience of one.
Well, I know I was super happy to see you at the end of the New Jersey Marathon, cheering me on when I was finishing. It was so great. And so I've been looking forward to chatting. And even though you've gone through some pretty heavy stuff, the victim of a violent crime, you just have such a warm spirit around you. I can just sense you don't want to waste any of this valuable time that you have. So
Thank you.
So, hey, say hi to everyone. Tell us where you are. I know yesterday you were taking a bus to San Antonio. What's going on?
Yeah, it didn't happen.
Oh.
So I was, the bus never showed up, although Flixbus said it showed up, and I was the only one that didn't get on out of all the customers that it was picking up. And it was kind of crazy because I'm sitting there, I'm like, well, I'm out here with the other customers that hadn't got picked up as well. So we don't know what happened. I'm just guessing it probably is because of the flash floods that took place in Central Texas, because that's where we're headed to, San Antonio, so I can catch my flight to Washington, D.C., and then over to Burlington, Virginia, or not Virginia, Vermont, excuse me.
What's going on in Vermont? You got a race there?
Well, I don't have a race, but there is a race. the race to see who's the maddest person on the planet at the Mad Marathon.
Oh, are you cheering?
Yeah, I'm going to go there and do a book signing, and Bart Yasso going to be there as well. So I'm going to be doing a book signing with Bart. I don't know how many people are going to buy my book because of Bart.
I know.
Just to be on the same platform with him is an honor.
Wow. Can you get his number for me? Give him my name. Have him call me.
Yeah, I'll be like, hey, you need to get on this podcast I just recorded before I came here.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Oh my gosh, I better be on my best behavior then if you're going to connect me with Bart. So for those of you who don't know, Bart Yasso is the creator of the Yasso 400s.
400s, yes.
And former editor of Runner's World magazine. He's been to every marathon, every event, all this hard stuff. He's amazing. He is unstoppable, much like you, Aaron.
Well, he along with his friend and put the signs together for the training that pretty much everybody do in track and field from middle school on up to the Olympics. So it's like I said, it's going to be an honor to be in the same platform with him. Even if I don't sell one book, I'm going to at least see if I can sell one book to him.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I took the Flixbus last time from Austin to Dallas, and it was really cool. I've been to San Antonio a couple of times. It's pretty cute, and it's extra special to my family because back in 1957, my dad was stationed at the Air Force Base there, training to be a pilot. He looked so cute in his uniform, and my mom went down there to visit him, and they got engaged at the Alamo. Oh, how
Ooh.
cool. And then shortly thereafter, my dad came home on leave for Christmas break and knocked her up. It was probably that uniform, So 3 months later, they had a quickie wedding at my grandma's house, and he had to quit the Air Force. Oh no.
Oh.
But
So
eventually, they had four
who
kids and
got
were
knocked up?
my
Who
mom.
was the? No, your mom. But who? Was it you? You were the only child, or what? Who was
No,
who's going to be born?
that was my oldest brother. So eventually they had four kids and married for 63 years. So something was working there.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So my
Yes.
they were engaged first. My oldest brother, he's 12 years older than I am. I have a sister who's 7 years older and another brother who's only a year older than me. Well, this is supposed to be about you, not my family secrets. Oh, the shame.
Oh,
Yeah. So how are you going to make it to Vermont now? Do you know? What's your backup plan?
it's just rescheduled everything. So I have a bus leaving out Thursday, and I'll get there. And Friday is the packet pickup. Saturday is also the packet pickup, and then also the spaghetti dinner
Mm-hmm.
where Bart will be and I will be,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll have fun eating spaghetti. Yay!
Yeah. Yay. So now the only time I eat spaghetti is when I'm carbo loading before a race. And bananas too. Really sick of those.
Yeah.
Oh, so we've connected a few times since we first met about 6 months ago in January 2025 at Daufuskie Island in South Carolina. So I was down there with my husband Mike to run the marathon. He was being a spectator support crew as part of my quest for the 50 states. And one cool thing about Daufuskie Island is that you have to take a very small ferry to get there because there are no cars, no bridges. And when we got on the ferry, I saw this big, tall guy on crutches chatting with the runners. And I hoped he was not running this race on crutches because I was just cringing thinking about all the chafing that would cause. And turns out that friendly guy was Aaron because
Yes.
Daufuskie Island in January 2021 is where you actually started your quest. And so then you're back there 4 years later. You showed up on crutches just to promote your book and supportive and raise money like you're doing now with the Mad Marathon.
Yes. Yeah. I started with Daufuskie. That was a chore to get there. It was years in the making, actually, because
Uh-huh.
when I started my quest, the world decided it wanted to shut down with the
Yes.
COVID.
Yep.
And so in 2020, when I began the quest, it quickly ended. And so I had to wait till everything opened back up. And then in 2021, I was going to start at the Houston Chevron Marathon. That was going to be my kickoff. 2 weeks before, it ended up canceling. And then I was like, oh, okay, well, then I'm going to go ahead and do Louisiana's marathon in Baton Rouge because I would never be able to do that because Chevron and Baton Rouge, Louisiana marathon is on the same day. So
Mm-hmm.
I was happy about that. And then a week before it canceled. So I was going to go to Phoenix and do the marathon in Phoenix because it's on the same day. Then it canceled, and then I was scrambling. I'm like,
Oh.
oh, we can't do this again for a second year. I gotta fight to get my life back. And so I was looking around, and somebody posted about the Daufuskie Island,
Yeah.
and I reached out to the race director because you couldn't sign up anymore, and so they told me to just come on out and I could run it. And so I ended up getting out there and took the ferry across. And then when I got off of the ferry, there was a lady that I had seen before at a marathon, and she remembered me, and she was like, "Aren't you Aaron?" And I was like, "Yeah." She was like, "I thought that was you." She said, "Let's take a picture." And so I ended up taking a picture with her. And then when I walked up to the camp where the check-in is and everything, everybody was sitting there, and I said, "Hey, I'm here to check in. My name is Aaron." And they was like, started singing happy birthday to me because it was actually on my birthday, January
Oh,
15th, yeah,
oh.
2021. And so they just started singing happy birthday to me, took me by surprise. And it was so meaningful. And then I asked them after they got finished, I was like, "Oh, I didn't get a chance to record this." Okay. I put out my phone. I was like, "Let's do it all over again." So they ended up doing it all over again. And it's like very, very special to me. And so I went out there. Anytime I can get out there, I'll go out there to help support the charitable cause, not only with the sea turtles and everything, but also the race director and knowing what running for your mental health is. And there's an organization out there that helps people. So I always want to encourage, because I know people tend to say, running is my therapy, and it's cheaper than seeing a psychologist or something. But at the same time, running is therapeutic. It's not therapy. And so I kind of encourage people, regardless of what you're running for, make sure that you get the spiritual, the emotional, the mental health that you need, so that you're not just covering up the symptoms, but you're also getting to the source of the issue of why you're running or what you're running from.
Yeah. Yeah. You're a pretty spiritual guy. So this book is Metal Monday. As Aaron started, he's started this quest to run 50 marathons in these 50 states in 50 weeks after being shot 5 times. But what that title does not say is that it was also to honor your 50th birthday, right? Was that 2020 or 2021?
2021 to 2022.
Okay.
Yes.
And then also that you intended to finish all of these races under 5 hours and 5 minutes. And
Yes.
I see a lot of synergy there with all those number 5s. And
Yeah, so that was my original intent. Then the pause happened with COVID, and then I got started. And although I knew that the doctor said that my leg would be getting progressively weaker because I still have a bullet in my right gluteus maximus, I didn't know how much it was going to get weaker and how that would affect me. So that taking that whole year, it really affected me. And I come to realize that although I had this notion to finish in 5 hours, 5 minutes, 50 seconds, that I wanted to get every race down, which was good for me because before the shooting, I was pacing marathons, and I would pace them at 2:55 up to 4:10. I was like, I can't do no longer than 4:10 because that was like super slow, and it hurt me more to run a race at 4:10 than it did to run a 3-hour marathon. And it was very, very challenging. So for me, I was like, I'm going to play it conservative because I'll be doing a marathon every week. And, I knew I had the damage and everything, but it became very, very challenging. And I came to realize that it wasn't the goal of the quest or the journey itself, but that the whole thing was the marathon that I was running.
Yeah. Yeah. So I Googled it. It said that the number 5 represents transformation. And in the Bible, number 5 is often associated with God's grace. And I thought that was really fitting because that really is what your quest was about. This otherworldly voice, this spiritual push you felt to transform yourself into a better person. And you know what? I just realized it's 2025, which is 5 to the second power. It's exponential.
Yes, yes, it is exponential.
Yeah. And you know what? In honor of you, I'm going to change my last name from Dahlquist, Quist, to Dahlquist. Q-U-E-S-T.
That'll be awesome.
So like my first guest, Tom Peary, who's just run, hundreds of marathons and paced all sorts of things. And he's also managing stage 4 cancer and has run hundreds of marathons with that. I really consider you to also be unstoppable, but in a different way. I mean, you lost almost 200 pounds. You're running a lot of races, making good times, great times, under that 4 hours, running, coaching others as a pacer. And then your world changed. I mean, you got shot 5 times. You went on a quest to find your old self, your old identity as a runner. And yeah, the spoiler alert is that you did not complete many of the races that you signed up for. Your quest changed, you changed, but you're still unstoppable. So take us back, give us a little background here, back before you started your quest, way back before you got shot in that horrible crime, this robbery gone bad, way back even before you started running. What was going on in your life? What put you on this path to where you are today? I know you were running and overweight and not happy. So tell us about that.
Well, I had just finished basically another quest because I was telling my kids how important it was to get an education and that the decisions that you make determine your destiny. You don't end up where you don't want to be. You end up where everyday decisions take you. And my oldest son, Nicholas, said, Dad, if education is so important, then why didn't you go back to college and finish? And I said, you know what? You're right. I said, I'm going to go back to school and I'm going to finish before you graduate high school. So I was going to the College of Biblical Studies, getting a degree in Bible and transformational leadership, in which I did finish before my son graduated high school. And that was 2009, December 2009 is when I finished. And doing that and working and helping to raise kids, my weight kind of like shot up there because I didn't have too much time for any kind of recreation, sports, or working out or anything of that nature. I used to play basketball, football, flag football, stuff like that to stay in shape.
I've been calling that the workforce 15. I gained the freshman 15 and then the workforce 15.
So I was pretty overweight, was disgusted with myself, and I could barely wrap a towel around myself. And so I was turning 40 and I had my prostate checked and my health checked and everything because prostate cancer runs in my dad's side of the family. Mm-hmm. And my doctor told me everything was fine. He said, but you need to lose 40 pounds or else it's going to lose you. And I was like, well, I'm a little too busy right now.
I'm too busy to lose weight. I love it.
I don't have time. I'm like in school full time. This was before I graduated. So I was in school full time. I was telling him, I have my work and then I had kids. And, I was driving in Houston, Texas. I was driving over 100 miles a day, every day with my work, school, kids. And so he told me, he said, if you don't lose the 40 pounds, it's going to lose you. So how much time are you going to have when you're dead? And I said to myself, well, that'd be a lot of time then. And I said, well, how much weight will I lose when I'm dead? And he said, kudos. And then he asked me, how soon did I want to die? And that's when I really had to take what he was saying very, very serious. It was like a punch in the gut. And I remember I went out and I played sports in high school, basketball, football. And I worked out and stuff. So I knew what I needed to do, but I absolutely had no motivation to do it. I had no drive. And I remember going out, just starting small, trying to run, trying to do push-ups and do physical things. And it was just exhausting. And I remember I prayed and I was like, God, you got to help me. And next thing you know, my truck broke down and my engine wasn't any good. And I lived like almost 18 miles away from my job. So I ended up getting a place 2 miles close to my job, 2 miles away from my job. And I walked there in the morning, which was 30 minutes there and 30 minutes back. And that's where that began. And then as that got more comfortable for me and I wasn't hurting as bad, I literally started trying to run. And eventually, that 15 minutes, a mile, I was trying to run. I was able to run a straight mile without stopping. And 15 minutes turned into 20, 20 into 25, 30, 35, 40, until I got up to a whole hour of being able to run nonstop. And then from there, I took it to an hour and 10 minutes, 20, an hour and 30 minutes, 50 minutes till I got up to 2 hours. And at that particular time, it was probably 2 months in, and I had lost 40 pounds in that two months. And so I lost the weight that the doctor was saying, but I kept going because it was very relaxing to be out there running in the rain, running in the trails. I felt the presence of God, and it was just so peaceful that I kept doing it. So when I reached 2 hours, I did 2 hours and 15 minutes, and then 2 hours and 30, 45 till I got to 3 hours. And once I got to 3 hours running nonstop, I just kept going and didn't look back. The first year, I lost 100 pounds. And then the next 4 years, I ended up losing a total of 78 more pounds. So I lost 178 pounds total in 5 years, which was a total. I mean, the average man in the US weighs 168 pounds. So I
Wow.
lost a whole person. And by that time, I was just running. My long runs were anywhere from uh, 18 to 40 or 18 to 36 miles.
Mhm. Well,
And
well, and you're a tall guy too. How tall are you?
yeah, 6'2.5".
Okay.
So I was 6'2.5", 394 pounds. That was when I felt like weighing myself when I was probably the lowest.
Hmm.
And you know, you always want to weigh yourself when you feel like the lightest weight you can be.
Yeah. Yeah. Make sure you take your jammies off before you weigh yourself in the morning.
Yeah. Set my phone down, everything. Like
Yeah.
so,
Well, I did want to touch on a little bit, even before you had your kids. It sounds like you were kind of going down this path. You were involved with drug running, where you felt like God was telling you to go on a different path. Like you were involved in
yeah.
some bad stuff.
Oh yeah. I grew up in a family that my uncles used to tell us that we serve Satan.
Really?
So
Wow.
yeah, so I didn't grow up in the church. Matter of fact, I didn't even know who Jesus Christ was. And when I first seen the name, I was in Texas, and I remember asking somebody, how you pronounce that? And they said Jesus, because
Jesus.
it was a Mexican guy in my classroom. And so I was like, Jesus, okay. And so anytime I would see that, I would think of Jesus. I didn't know it was Jesus or Jesus Christ. I didn't know about God having a son. I didn't know about the Virgin Mary or any of that stuff. Yeah, Christmas for us was basically about toys, and that was about it. And that's even if you got any, because it wasn't like I grew up with a silver spoon in my mouth or with a lot of stuff. And just never knew about it, and ended up getting into what was the family business at the time, and was actually uh, on a drug run when God first spoke to me. I was in Louisville, Kentucky, up in the mountains, driving there. It was after midnight. I was listening to my Whitney Houston Bodyguard CD. Don't make me close one
Yeah.
more door.
Love that.
I don't want to hurt anymore. And I knew about hurting, I knew about pain, but I didn't know about healing. And I didn't know that there was a healer. And so I'm up there and I'm looking at the stars, and it just looked like you could just pluck them out of the sky. They were so big and beautiful and bright. And I remember hearing God speak to me and say, I don't want you doing this. and it wasn't a voice like you have ever heard. It was all consuming from every angle. I mean, it sounded like the sound of his voice was coming from every angle. And I felt the voice consume me like I was a boy in a bubble and went into the depths of my soul. And I was scared.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, cut my music down. And I was listening and looking around. I mean, it was just me in the car, and I didn't know what was going on. So I kept driving. And I remember the following week, I was taking another load
Mm-hmm.
and same area. And I'm listening to my Bodyguard CD. And next thing you know, I heard his voice say to me, I said, I don't want you doing that anymore. And it was more angry, um, more authoritative. And I instantly cut my music down and I went to listen. And I was demon possessed. And people kind of like, they like, you were demon possessed. I'm like, yes. And so I knew I had two demons in me. And I even remember when the demons got into me because I was driving down Bel Air Boulevard, and I was at Derry Ashford and Southwest Alief, Texas. Everybody call it the SWAT. It's Alief, Texas. But I was sitting there at the light, and it was at night, and I was booming The Chronic by Dr. Dre. And I remember the music sounded like it turned backwards, and it was saying some demonic stuff. And that's when these two demons, I remember, entered me then. And so they would tell me stuff. They would keep me from being busted and tell me when to take my trips, when not to, who to deal with, who not to deal with. I mean, they were very informative of what I was doing. But I remember that night, one of the demons said, "Who is that? Is that you, God?" And the other demon said, "F you, God."
Oh,
And I
wow.
remember telling the demon that I don't think you should have said that. And I just had so much fear. And as I began to drive that night, I continued driving. It was like I seen every roadkill there was. And when I tell you the conviction that I
Mhm.
had of like dying,
Yeah.
it was strong. And it was like I could see the ant that got ran over. And
You'd
I
see
was sitting
everything
there,
that
yeah,
was dead along the
everything in
way.
it was dead along the way. And I remember I was doing Hail Marys, and I was thinking about Tupac and his song Hail Mary, and then I was thinking
Mm-hmm.
about the Godfather series and the movies, and I was so trying, so desperate to appease this angry God. I remember I pulled over before I went in. I was in Florence, Kentucky that morning. And before I pulled across the bridge to go into Cincinnati, I remember I pulled over and crossed over the bridge to this Exxon. And I went in there and I started buying whatever I could that had anything to do with religion. They had candles with
Mm-hmm.
Mary on there and praying hands. And I asked the guy, did he have any holy water or anything? The guy, he gave
Yeah.
me crosses, and the guy looking at me like, what? And I was like, never mind, I'll just take these. And so I was doing whatever I could to pretty much satisfy this voice. And as I drove into Cincinnati across the bridge, I kept driving. And so in the nighttime, um, or not the nighttime, but as I began to see the roadkill on the side of the road again, I would do the Hail Marys and everything. And I remember the conviction that I had that if you don't turn from what you're doing, this is how you're going to die.
Yeah.
And so when I got back to Houston, I remember I knocked on my door, and my son at the time, my son's mom, my youngest son Nicholas, the one that challenged me to go to school, he was a baby at the time, but she opened up the door and she was like, "Where's your key? How come you're knocking on the door?" I was so taken by what happened to me. I looked at her and I said, "I think God wants me to serve him." And she laughed at me. She said, "Yeah, right. Get in here." And so I went in, and then we were eating dinner, and I was like, "We got to pray. We got to bless the food. We got to do something."
Wow.
And she was like, "Okay." And I just remember we grabbed hands and bowed our heads, and I was like, "Thank you for the food." And so I was trying to do anything to appease him. And of course, nothing you can do satisfies the wrath of God. It's everything that he's done for us. I didn't know that at first, but I would come to know that
Mm-hmm.
the third time that he spoke to me, and he delivered me from the demons. He gave me his Holy Spirit, which I didn't even know at the time. He told me about his son because I remember he convicted me of my sins. And I thought I was a pretty good guy,
Uh-huh.
even with the drug dealing and stuff. I mean, I would even argue with God that I didn't sell to any kids. I only sold to consenting adults. You know, it was like everything that he was convicting me of that I was just like really, really had an answer for. And then he talked about vengeance.
Mm-hmm.
And he asked me a question. He said, "If you think that you're just to take vengeance on those who have done you wrong, how much more just am I to condemn you to an eternal hell? For I am holy and you are not." And I remember saying, "What are you talking about?" and I
Mm-hmm.
was just complaining about everything people had did to me in my life. And in the midst of that, it was like this light bulb went off. And I remember I just climbed off my bed. I was sitting on the edge of it, climbed off my bed, laid down on the floor, and I was crying, and I said, "God, how could you ever forgive me?" It was like at that moment I could I understood that I was a sinful person. I wasn't a good person that had bad things happen to me to where I was blaming everybody, parents, how I was raised, what people did to me as to why I was doing wrong. It was because I was wrong. I was a sinner. And this God was angry, and he wanted his wrath appeased, and I was never going to be able to appease his wrath. But here he is. When I'm asking him, how could he ever forgive me? He tells me about his son that he sent to the earth to suffer for the sins of the world. And that if I believed on his son, he would give me eternal life. And it was like I could believe. I had the faculty in my mind to believe. I had the faith to believe. And I didn't know all this stuff at the moment, but he's given me this gift of repentance because of his son. And I knew at that moment that if I rejected his gift, that I was going to be forever under his wrath. And I said, "I believe, God, please forgive me." And from there, it's just been like a wonderful boot camp, if you will, where stuff has not gotten better, but the fact that it got worse for me intrigued me because I'm like, this guy must be real.
Mm-hmm.
Because here I am following him and obeying him and listening to him and doing what he's telling me. And it seems like all hell was breaking loose against me.
Mm-hmm.
I had family that just stopped talking to me. I had friends that never talked to me again. It was just so much. And then he took the demons out of me. He gave me his spirit in me. And I remember I woke up and I felt the presence of what I know is the spirit of God, but I didn't know at the time. And I remember reaching over, I grabbed my phone, I called my mom, and I said, "Mom, somebody's living in me." And she said, "What'd you say?" I said, "Somebody's living in me." She like, "Boy, are you doing drugs?" I said,
Right.
"Ma, you know I don't do drugs. It's stupid to do drugs. I sell them, but I don't do them." And she said, "Wait a minute, I'll call you right back." And she ended up calling me back. She said, "I talked to your grandma. She said that that's nobody but the Holy Spirit of God in you." And so I was like, okay. And that was it from there. And I didn't know, but he began to convict me. He began to lead me, began to tell me what to do. And I've been following him ever since.
Uh-huh. So, I think of this as like a spiritual partner. It's this voice in your head. You can think of it as God. It can be some voice from the other side. It can be, you can think of it as a spirit guide. It could be coming from your, internal body. But some of those things feel so real. They're so different. I mean, I've had this experience myself several times, and I kind of describe it as you're normally walking around in air, but then when you jump in the water, it feels so different. You hear
Mm-hmm.
a voice like that. And, it sounds like this voice pushes you to do the right thing. And in this case, it scared you. You were afraid. And in my case, I had a pretty profound experience as well. When I was a kid, I was 12, and the doctors had told me this disturbing news that I was going to die soon, and I would be lucky to live another 3 years. And so I was sitting in my bedroom, in the back of an old farmhouse, slowly dying, looking over these cornfields as far as the eye could see, and thinking about, I'm going to be dead in 3 years and no one will know anything about me. I'll have made no difference in the world. I won't matter. If my brothers and sisters end up having kids, they'll just see my name, maybe the dates on the tombstone. Maybe my mom will tell them about me. Maybe they might see a picture, but they won't really know anything about me. Wow, Aaron, that brings me right back to that bedroom. I'm just having this crying jag, this meltdown, and I hear this voice, the same thing from out of nowhere, tell me you'll be okay. It's not something to scare me. It's you'll be okay, which immediately calmed me down. And I don't know where it came from or why that thought popped in my head because it was completely opposite from what I was thinking of. But it was a command, and that I was going to be okay, and I knew it was going to be true, and I could actually start functioning. I stopped crying, I calmed down, I had this other world comfort. And when I was in the hospital, I actually reassured one of the nurses when she asked me, I told her I was going to be okay. And she was like, "Well, how do you know that?" And I told her, "Well, God told me so." And she looked kind of dumbfounded. I just wonder, did she pass that on to the surgeons while they were poking around? Did they ever think about it? And
Mm.
so, and I've had some other experiences similar to that. And you don't have to be a Christian to believe this. You know, it can be any religion. And as an adult, I think about that voice, that message, "You'll be okay." And I just always hoped it applied to the rest of my life. And so far, so good. I see these internal spiritual pushes that have spurred me on to grow my business and now to start a charity, which I feel like part of this podcast is to draw attention to this charity. Oh, and now as a follow up, I have 5 nieces and nephews, and they told me they've started listening to the podcast, which is really scary to tell them all this stuff. And they told me they didn't know anything about my being sick as a kid or growing up, and they're intrigued. So it's nice they told me they're glad I made it.
Well, I'm glad you made it too. Had you not made it and had I not made it, we wouldn't be here talking about it today.
Yeah, and in your book, I think you said, this urge to lose the 40 pounds also felt like a commandment, that God had influenced you in several different places, this spiritual push, to start running and training and getting in shape. And then unfortunately, once you had been shot, then to restart and transform your life. So, you say, are you stoppable versus unstoppable? You have
And
these.
and what I've come to realize is that in all of that and getting healthier, when I was in a hospital and a detective from the homicide robbery division came up there, he said to me, "Can you imagine had you been almost 400 pounds?" He said, "You wouldn't be alive."
Wow.
He said that he watched the video and he said there was no way you would have hopped to your feet like you did and ran.
Wow.
Um, like the Holy Spirit told me at that particular time. And so when he said that, I had already been thinking over the period of time that God had a plan for me at the company where I was. And it just really solidified that to me, the fact that that's why God had me get in the shape that I was in the running. It was all about serving others. It was never about me because I had planned on going professional because people kept telling me, man, you killing it. Your times is just like, I had
Mm-hmm.
people like what are you doing? What kind of training do you do? And I was like, I don't. This is the lifestyle. People ask me
Yeah.
about what kind of cross training do you do? And I was like, I don't. This is just a lifestyle. And I literally was not. It was eating healthy and it was just running and cycling and running.
Yep.
And that's all it was. I didn't do any kind of weight training or anything of that nature. I would tell people trail running, I said, trail running will train you. I
Yeah.
said, because you don't have, you make a mistake, you fall, you're going to learn real quick. Lift that leg, plant that foot.
Mm-hmm.
It will teach you how to move. And plus, your body is just this well designed organism and machine that God has made. And your sight and the feel, your movements, your feet, everything just starts working in concert together. And it's a lot harder than just the same mundane movements that you have when you're running on a road race. And so when people told me that you ought to run, you ought to think about running professional. Have you ever thought about it? And I thought, people just flatter you. Yeah, it's okay. But it wasn't until I had professional athletes telling me about my time that I was kind of like taking notice. And then one day when I was at church, my pastor, he came to me, he said, big man, because that's what he called me, big man. He said, big
Not big
man.
sexy. Your
He
pastor
don't
called you
call me
big
big
man.
sexy. If he called me big sexy, I wouldn't be at that church.
That's only for the special ladies who are cheering you on the race course.
Yeah, that's for them. But so he's like, hey, you ever thought about running professional? And I said, no. I said, but a lot of people ask me. And he said, well, I have a friend of mine that's a professional running coach. And he said, I talked to him about you. He said, I shared a lot of your times that you have. And he said he'd be willing to talk to you if you want to talk to him. I can set it up. And I told him, yeah. And so I went and I met Andy. He's was a running coach out with Fort Bend Fit in Sugar Land, Texas. Andy has since passed since COVID, and he started the Turkey Trot in Sugar Land, Texas. He was the one that started there, and then he had a shoe store out in Sugar Land, Texas. Now his wife, she runs everything except for the shoe store. It's no longer there, but she does the run and everything out in Sugar Land, Texas, Turkey Trot. And so I got with Andy and he was telling me about Western states and all this other stuff. And then when he told me about the possibility of the money I can make and how hard I was working in corporate America, and I'm like, so you telling me I can get paid for doing what I do when I get off work after I've worked 12 to 15 hours?
Yep.
He's like, yeah. I was like, sign me up. And
Yep.
so I went to run the Brazos Bend 100. That's what I was going to do as my benchmark run. We were going to use that to assess my fitness and, what I needed to do. And he wanted me to keep up with the professional runners as much as possible. I told him keep up with him. I said, dude, I'm going out there to win. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And so 2 weeks before that race was to take place is when the workplace shooting took place. And
Mm-hmm.
so I went and ran still. I asked the surgeon that was going to do surgery to remove the bullets. I asked him if I ran would I be doing any more damage to myself? And he said, no, they're not going to move. He said, but it just depends on how much pain you want to be in. And I said, well, I have a high threshold of pain, so I should be okay,
Mm-hmm.
being an ultra marathoner. And
Yeah.
I just naturally had a high threshold of pain because I played sports, so you have injuries. However, I
Mm-hmm.
had no idea what I was in for.
Yeah.
I got
So,
to mile
wow.
30, probably about 32, 35, and the stress of my body kicked in, and I was falling for no reason, and then vertigo kicked in at mile 40, and they made me call it quits, and I was trying to convince the course marshal, just give me a moment. I only got 10 more miles to go.
Yeah.
And I wanted to finish, but I had to call it quits. And it really, that as quickly as my professional career started was as quick as it ended.
So are you saying that was 2 weeks after you had the surgery?
No, 2 weeks after the shooting. I hadn't had the surgery yet.
Oh, okay. Okay. So you had the shooting. And what year was that? It was like, what, 8 years ago or something?
Well, that was almost 10 years ago. So
Okay.
November 28th, 2015 was when the shooting took place. And
Yeah.
so it was 2 weeks after that. It was in December of 2015. I
You know,
didn't have the surgery till almost the end of December.
okay. Was there ever a moment during your immediate recovery and response to that where you felt you were going to be okay?
I had no idea,
You had no
to be
idea.
honest with you. Yeah, you go through something like that, and it's just a flight or fight response. And in my situation, it was let me save people's lives, because if I died, I knew because of Jesus Christ, I was going to go to heaven. I knew my coworkers, they didn't know the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And as a matter of fact, the detective told me that people were thanking me. And he said that I told them, don't thank me, thank God, because if you would have died, you would have went to hell. But if I had died, I would have gone to heaven. And I said that? He said, yeah. I said, I don't remember saying that. And he said, does it sound like something you would say? I said, yeah, it definitely does. I said, but I do not remember saying that. He said, I said it to a few people. But your adrenaline is going.
Mm-hmm.
You in a fight or flight, literally had conceded that I was going to be killed, and actually said, God, is this what it feel like before somebody murder you? Because I had all kind of peace until the Holy Spirit told me to roll over and then jump up and run.
So you had a moment where it was get off your ass and run, even though you'd been shot in the butt. Get up and roll,
Well,
or you rolled first, so you didn't get.
Yeah, the first time I was shot was I got shot in the upper left torso, my rib cage, and the bullet ricocheted off of that. And then when I was on the ground and he went to go shoot me in my chest, center mass, he was standing over me. That's when the Holy Spirit told me to roll over. And just as I rolled over, he pulled the trigger and the bullet hit the ground. And then the Holy Spirit told me to get up and run. And as I did, he shot 4 more times while chasing me, and I got hit 4 more times. And one of the bullets, of course, like I said, is still in my gluteus maximus. I had another one removed by surgery. And then I had one that went in and traveled down and came out my inner thigh on my left side that missed my femoral artery by 1 centimeter. And when I was actually in the emergency room, I was complaining about my inner thigh and the irritation. And the nurse, I put my leg back and he examined my groin area and actually came up with, had pulled the bullet fragment was sticking out on my inner thigh, and he had it in his hand.
Wow.
And so they sent me to X-ray to get that leg X-rayed to make sure that there wasn't any more bullets in there or a bullet fragment. And that's when he came back. He said that the radiologist, when they read the X-ray, said that the bullet missed my femoral artery by 1 centimeter.
Oh, yeah. That really, really makes you feel like something special happened to prevent that tragedy. So close, so close. And for you, I know you have this very physical reaction to traumatic events. You've been dealing with complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and out of that, I've experienced this post-traumatic, they call it PTSD, post-traumatic stress growth, this transformation. I just think, wow, you went through that, robbery, and you still show up. You don't know if your glute will show up, but you're showing up at these races.
Yeah, there's always a but in the but.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll show up at them, and my leg can be, it's Russian roulette. There's no rhyme or reason to it. Like people, like when it's storm, they ask me, does it hurt? And I'm like, it hurts all the time. The more I run or something, the more pain I'm in. And it seemed to be 10 miles is really my limit before the pain becomes unbearable.
Hmm.
And whether I run, or run, 10 miles is that number that it's just like, make me want to karate chop my mama in the throat.
So how are you dealing with this chronic pain? What are some things that you're doing that are helpful?
Well, the only thing that really is helpful where I get any relief is to take ice baths.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Other than that, I pray and I ask God for the grace to endure. Sometimes it gets so bad I cry. I just lay there and cry. I mean,
Hmm.
there's nothing, and I think for me the emotional pain because of what happened is even worse than the physical pain. The mental anguish, the anger that I have. I'm always praying for those that did what they did, the company that I work for and the wrong that they've done to me, the police here in Houston with the organized crime unit and the wrong that was done to me by them, and just the collateral damage that was done by the company. And so I'm always praying for people. The Bible says that we ought to pray for those who despitefully use us, and be angry, but don't sin in your anger. So what happened to me, righteously, I'm angry about it, but I don't sin in my anger because, again, I remember what God told me. If I think I'm just to take vengeance out on those who done me wrong, how much more just is he to condemn me to an eternal hell? And because I appreciate that I have this gift of eternal life because of the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ Jesus, I'm going to heaven. My sin's been paid for. I get his righteousness when I deserve his wrath, and I'm going to heaven for all eternity. I make a conscious decision to allow God to work in me to do his will and his good pleasure. And so therefore praying for those who did wrong to me. And that doesn't go away. When the pain is there, it's like, when people peel a scab
Yeah.
and you start bleeding again. So the pain is my scab. When the pain hits, it's like when the PTSD hits, it's like peeling a scab, and then all that blood start coming out. That's the emotional, that's the mental anguish and frustration, and so I don't want that anger. I don't want to send in my anger. I don't want it to turn into wrath and unrighteous anger, wrath, calamity, malice. That stage of anger out of control. I don't want it to become a volcano. So I'm always giving it to the Lord. I'm always casting my cares and burdens upon the Lord. I'm always crying to him and letting him know just how bad I'm hurting. And then on top of that, not being able to run to where I can find that comfort and I can escape and that stress, and it was really, I felt like the very thing that helped me get to where I was fighting to get back, and I'm not even back there. But at the same time, it's God's grace that's keeping me, and it's very difficult. It's very hard, but I find comfort when I go out and serve at the runs, when I'm out there cheering people on, when I'm out and I can pace the half marathon, and I'm the sweeper pacer. And so I'm back there and I'm cheering people on from the back. And then when you do the out and backs, I get to cheer the runners that's ahead of us on. And um, the to live vicariously through others' joys and their accomplishment, to see people finish their first marathon and cry and celebrate with family and friends. And so me serving others, that helps me find comfort, find encouragement.
Helping others helps yourself.
Yes.
And hopefully with the podcast and with the book, you say, you hope people can take away some inspiration, transformation. I'm kind of hearing you say that you take comfort in a bigger picture, in kind of having your conversations with God, with your spirits. Don't wallow in the anger. You kind of unload your problems. You vent kind of in a healthy spiritual way, and helping others in any way that you can,
Yeah.
And you're still out there. That's why I consider you unstoppable, because you're still out there doing as much running as you possibly can. The passion, the thing that you love, like you said, it used to be your escape, and it's something you're always fighting to get back. And so now you're finding the pieces of that you can still incorporate into your life. Whether or not your glute is going to allow you to do that or not just depends on the day to day.
Yes. It's a day-to-day activity. I remember when I did the Daufuskie, I remember when I ran it, and there was one part where you in that beautiful lawn area where the golf course is and those beautiful homes, and there was that wooden bridge we ran across. And I remember coming off of that wooden bridge, and we were just talking and running, and next thing you know, I'm flat faced on the ground.
Oh no.
And the group I was running with, they stopped. Are you okay? I was like, y'all keep going. I'll be okay. I'm like, because I'm like, this is normal to me now. And it was crazy for me to say that, but it was, because, here I am, that leg, it'll give out any moment.
Yeah.
And you find yourself it's like it's not there.
Oh my God. Yeah. You run enough and eventually you fall down, even if you don't have an injury. And yeah, I've fallen down one time so far. Well, I almost fell down on someone else. I landed on this girl in front of me. I grabbed her shoulder and she stopped me from falling. But the other time I fell down during a trail run. Of course, it's a trail run. You go up and down St. Croix Falls. It's really steep and beautiful in the bluffs here of the St. Croix River. And at mile 24, we're in the flattest part of the course on the bike trail, no problems. And for some reason, I fell down and scraped at my hands. I'm like, this is not the scary part of the trail. I made it 24 miles through the woods, up and down the hills. And then at mile 24, I fall down. I'm so mad.
That relaxed part.
So now whenever I do a trail run, I wear some garden gloves. I cut the tips of the fingers off the garden gloves. And so I have the rubber part on the palms of my hands. And that gives me the confidence if I know if it's going to be a course with a lot of roots or rocks or something, I'm going to fall down. And I don't know, I think maybe I just relaxed a little bit too much when I finally got to the bike trail and tripped.
That's what it was.
And I know you find most joy in these trail runs, getting out there.
Trail runs are just beautiful.
Do you hike otherwise too?
Yeah, I'll go out and walk and hike just as enjoyable in a sense, but running through the trails to move in your body, and you're sitting there and you're part of that creation, and you see the squirrels, you see the rabbits, the snakes, the birds, and stuff moving, frogs, whatever is out there. And to be part of that, it's just your grounding. You just get grounded spiritually, emotionally, physically, mentally, physiologically. It's just it's like recharging yourself.
Yeah, I agree with that. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's like becoming one with who you were meant to be.
Yeah, I think we're beasts meant to be in the woods, so it kind of feels pretty good after you've been in the city a little bit too much.
Been around the concrete jungle.
Yeah, the concrete jungle. Yep. So Aaron, you're out there, you're running a lot, you're still unstoppable. You're still signing up for these races. In your book, you talked about running the Pine Line Marathon in Medford, Wisconsin, which I love that race. I've run it a couple times. It's super cute. It's an out and back on an old rail trail. Just peaceful in nature, exactly what we had talked about before, where you just humming along and it's just marsh and birds. But part of the course is there's a gun range next to it. And I didn't think twice about it. I kind of grew up in the country. We do some little shooting here and there. And of course there's a gun range. But for you, that sent you right back to the scene of the crime where these gunshots really triggered you and really made it hard to move on. It was very upsetting. Why didn't you know this was going to be there? Can you talk a little bit about how you manage your post-traumatic stress disorder? Tell us a little bit about your journey there.
One of the things that I had to come to grips with is I had to take ownership and responsibility for what I needed to do. I couldn't control what happened to me, and I couldn't control what people wasn't doing. What I could control is what I was going to do. So I became the CEO of my own healthcare.
Okay.
And I put a team together before I started this quest with my doctors, my physical therapist, psychologist, psychiatrist. I did a bunch of research. I found out that running and massage therapy actually have scientific proof to help people with PTSD the most out of everything. And I found these studies from the universities, and I remember sending them to my doctors and stuff, and they were like, "Where did you find this stuff?" I'm like, "Look, this is about me." I have nothing but time, and I don't sleep. I'm sleep deprived. I said, I have to do something. And so I put this plan together with the question, and I just tell people, this is what I'm going to do. If you can't be on board with it, I understand. Let me know. I'll find me somebody else. And even with my insurance company and Medicare and Aetna and things, I reached out to them and I told them, and I fought for things that they didn't want to do. And I told them what I've been through. And I'm like, look, I'm fighting for my life. You're just looking at your policy, and you're looking at this and you're looking at that. But this is about my life. And surprisingly, a lot of stuff got approved that typically probably wouldn't have gotten approved. And so when I got to Pineline, it was the same thing. And here you come, and I'm having a great time. And I'm also in a lot of pain because my pain started at mile 2 there. I mean, the unbearable pain. And I told myself that I'm going to at least get to the turnaround, half marathon point, and then work my way back, because I'll be going down, and, instead of double digits, I'll be dropping down like 13 miles to go, 12, 11, 10, 9. And it makes it easier to do the mileage. Well, on the way out around mile 9 is when you run into this gun range that they're having this, what they call a trap house out there now in the South. The trap houses are different, but you got to remember, COVID was happening, so nobody was doing anything. And now that stuff has opened back up, everybody's doing everything, but everybody's doing everything on top of each other. So the race directors, they didn't have any idea. The city really didn't inform people what was going to be going on with one another. And so we hit that, and I'm thinking to myself, I got to do something to distract myself. So I pull up my phone and I start recording myself, and I'm looking at myself as I'm going through this, and I'm talking to myself. I'm getting myself through this. And as I'm doing that, I'm literally watching other people just fall apart with the guns that are being shot, and you can feel the recoil. You could feel the vibration from some of these weapons that they were firing. And so I get to the turnaround point, and I'm starting to go back, and I run past the water stop, and I'm going, and I hear one of the bigger guns fire, and I stop, and I turn around. I was like, I can't do this. and I am about to fall apart at this point. And so they call for somebody to come pick me up, which I appreciated. And so I actually ride with the guy who was a veteran himself, and get back in, and I'm talking to people, and I'm listening to people tell the race director, it felt like I was being shot out there every time one of those guns went off. And these were people that had no PTSD, was not involved in any kind of war, combat situations, or anything, that was like fearful for their lives, that literally were in tears. And I'm thinking to myself, this is that the fact that I kept it together was, as much as I did, was a win for me.
Yeah.
And then there were
Yeah.
other people that were older out there that were Vietnam vets, or Gulf War vets, and they talked about how difficult it was for them to run back through there. But I commended them for it. But at the same time, I knew the fact that I was already in the pain that I was in, coupled with the shooting, the gun range, it was just way too much for me. And I just, as I ran, like I said, as I started back in, I ended up turning around, coming back to the aid station and telling them I can't do it, because I was about to lose it. I was about to fall apart, and there was just no way I could get back through there.
Yeah, because you're out there trying to escape this, and here it is right there.
It did.
So you were able to comfort yourself, to tell yourself that you're not there, you're in the race, you're safe, you can make it so far, and then you recognize within yourself that, okay, this is really my limit. I gotta make a change. I got to get out of here. You don't want to go down that dark path. And the way to get out of that dark path was to leave the situation, as they say.
It's my body taking over, thinking that I'm there, even though I know I'm not there. It's like being thrown out of a plane without a parachute and somebody telling you to swim.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have a little PTSD myself from my medical treatments, because they were just traumatic, and I was younger. It was very hard to deal with. But nothing to the extent that you have. But my therapist had told me, that PTSD, when you're having these obsessive thoughts, that it's like walking on a trail with your brain. And the more that you allow yourself to think about that, go down those neural pathways, always going the same direction of getting upset about it, the more it just kind of reinforces those negative thoughts. And so you have to kind of imagine a stop sign, tell yourself to stop, refocus on something else, something you enjoy, pull yourself out of that moment into a different, happier place. They talk about go to your happy place. It's just so simple.
Yeah.
You got to give yourself a lot more credit.
And what I mean by that is that when people say that it's that easy,
it's not
it hasn't
easy.
been that easy.
No,
and it isn't that easy. And that's why I told you it's by the grace of God and serving others. When people reach out to me, when I get a text message, when I get a inbox, a DM, when I get somebody telling me you have no idea how much you've helped me. I've told people that I've never hugged so many men in my life.
I love that.
Doing this quest and writing this book. Even though I'm officially an author, I'm really not the author of the book. The book wrote me. And I tell people that all the time. I didn't write the book. The book wrote me. But I've cried with men, hugged men, embraced men. I was at the Ottawa race weekend on Memorial Day weekend out in Ottawa, Canada. And they had a 3-day expo there. And so the first day, it was a short day. It was only 6 hours. And the second day, it was like 12 hours. So the first day, this guy, he buys a copy of my book. And then the second day, while I'm there, I'm talking to some people about the book and things of that nature. And this guy, he sees me talking to these people, and he walks over to him. He's like, "Get the book." Oh my God. He said, I was in tears. I couldn't stop crying last night. And they're looking at him like, for real, bro? And it's a group of guys. I'm talking to all men here. And this guy is sharing how he was just in tears and what it meant to him. He's like, I just picked up the book to look at it. And he said, I just got engulfed in it. And he's like, he said, I'm several chapters in already. He said, but he's like, you want to get the book. But the fact that happens, I'm telling you, that is the Spirit of God working on the hearts of men, and people being able to connect and find themselves in my story. It's been phenomenal. It's literally been an amazing thing. And even like my god sister, she's sitting here
Mhm.
and listening to us. But even when she first read it, she called me and she was in tears. And I get that so much. And it's like, that is like a wireless charger for my soul and my spirit. It encourages me and it keeps me going. And just when I think that I have no more gas, that I can't go any further, here comes another call. Here comes another text. Here comes another inbox. Here comes an email.
Here
Here
comes
comes
Sally
somebody
calling you.
asking me. Yeah. Here comes
Here,
Sally asking
here
me to
comes
be on her
Sally. Yeah,
podcast.
be on my new podcast, Aaron. It might be
So
okay. I
listen,
don't know.
it's all about running and serving. It's about others. That's where part of my healing has come from. The other part of it was the spiritual aspect. I had my elders pray for me. Had them pray over me. Not only with my psychologist, psychiatrist, the spiritual part with my church, the physical part with physical therapy, with the people that helped me as far as the training was concerned, my massage therapist. And here's the thing. I put a team together. So in my book, all these people are listed in my book. And I tell people, you have to put a team together. You have to become the CEO of your own healthcare. You have to recruit. You have to fight. But you have to do it and celebrate those victories. Because I'm going to tell you, I did not know when I was going to live again. I did not know. It was so dark. I couldn't
Mhm.
think. Sleep deprivation lasted for almost 7.5 years.
Wow.
And so I was diagnosed by the world's leading authority on PTSD as having um, uh, one of the most severe case of PTSD that he's ever seen, even worse than combat PTSD. In all of that, I was like, if I do not fight, I'm going to lay here and die from sadness and depression. And then I found out that you can die from sleep deprivation.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
didn't know that. And I was like, I could have been dead.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of people can relate to your story, the different parts of it. I mean, there's always, always these challenges that we face. And so that's one way that you have become unstoppable is that you made this conscious choice that you are not going to stop, that you felt sad and depressed, and you're looking around at your life going, oh man, this is not good. Lord help me. And you got off that couch, right? And you started moving again. You said you had to kind of redefine yourself, accepting a different outcome. When you quit something, you can accept it, be a defeatist. I can't do this. I know I'm no good. Or, you look at how you're stopping and you change your language. You're not quitting. You're just changing your pathway.
I
You're
wasn't ready to
choosing.
die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I mean, at the end of the day, that's what it was, either die or lose the weight. Right.
yeah.
And so I was faced with that, either die or live again. Which one are you going to do? And I wasn't ready to die. So, as much as I wanted to be back to my old self, I came to realize through this quest that I was being transformed into someone else, a new a new person that God was allowing me to become, somebody that is more resilient, someone else that can suffer alone, someone else that can bear the burdens and bear the pain and not just rejoice with people, not just serve others, not cry with others. I would never be that person that I was. I remember my god brother, he was crying and he's like, man, I just want the old you back. And I was like, man, don't nobody want the old me back more than me. But I said, that guy is dead. He's not coming back. I'll never be who I was. I'm learning who I am, this transformation. I'm learning this new person that I am. And so it was scary.
yeah.
Um, I had crying spells that were uncontrollable. Here I am to this day still being affected by, we just had the 4th of July, still being affected by fireworks, even though I know that I'm safe and nothing is happening. My body doesn't know that. The emotions, and then literally that my brain is like remapped itself and shut down certain parts from when I was going through the actual shooting. Because when the paramedics came, my blood pressure was 260 over 200. And so my brain was starting to shut down. I probably was going to stroke out. And here I am now living, and I'm like surviving, and I don't even know how I'm doing it. It's by the grace of God. And there were times that I was running in my sleep,
Yeah, I do
running
that.
away. Yeah. Running
Yeah.
away from trying to be killed.
Oh,
One
yep.
time I ran down the hallway and ran into my son's door, and he was like, "What's that?" And he opens up the door, and I'm sitting there on the ground up against the wall, asleep. But in my mind, I'm running.
Okay, no, I haven't done that.
Yeah.
I'll dream
So,
about running. If I haven't run for a while,
yeah.
I'll start breathing in my sleep as if I'm in that race pace. Um,
Yeah.
that's incredible.
Yeah.
It comes out somehow.
Yeah. I wake up and I'm in a part of my condo. I was on a sink. I had a vanity, and I'm on there, and then going to like use the restroom at a public gas station or something, and just get triggered. And now I'm hiding up under the sinks, and
Yeah.
hiding up under cars. It was just terrible. It was a miserable existence. And I'm like, I can't do this. And so one of the main things that I had going for me was when I was doing a quest, I was trying to raise $50,000 for St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. Part of that whole thing is to focus on someone that was less fortunate than myself. And although I had been through a tremendous amount, true enough, but the kids with St. Jude, they're suffering and they can't take a time out. They can't stop. They can't just, call for help at mile 13 because you can't make it back through. They're living with this pain. They're living with what they're going through. And so I was focused on the kids from St. Jude, and I promised myself that if I ever had to stop, like because of the pain, that I wasn't going to stop until I at least completed a half marathon. And sometimes that meant I'm literally crying the last 10K as I'm going through, and I'm like uncontrollably in a crying spell, and people asking me, am I okay? And I'm telling them yes. And people worried about me, people concerned about me. But it's like I can't stop it. And the pain triggers that.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to keep going because here it is. I made a promise to myself that I'm not going to stop because these kids can't stop. So that was part of my healing, is focusing on someone that is less fortunate than myself, not just the quest. The quest was to get me out from Starbucks, because I was like, people call Starbucks my first home, and that my apartment was my second home.
Yeah.
But I literally was like, I had to fight to get outside, just to be outside, and not because I needed to fight the depression. Being inside wasn't going to help. And then people said, well, why didn't you just do virtual runs? And I said, because it was too easy not to do something. I said, when I had to
Yeah.
get up and go and catch a flight and go somewhere, it forced me to be around people. It forced me to have to interact with people. And I don't think people understood how difficult that was for me, because now I'm dealing with a spirit of fear, and that where are these guys at? What's going to happen? Who's somebody's going to kill me. And then on top of that, the noises going through airports and the stuff that would happen, things that people would drop. And I mean, it was overwhelming. And
Yeah.
so that's what I was doing. I was forcing myself to get out of that cave, that prison that I had built around myself with fear and doubt and anxiety. and depression being the tools and the lumber, if you will, that I enclosed myself in. And by going to travel, I had to get out of that and force myself. And it was difficult. It was hard. But the running community was so amazing. At the race directors, every race that I went to, and I say this if you read the book, except for Boston.
Yeah.
Me and Boston had a love-hate relationship. But every race that I went to, except for Boston, the race directors were just, they went above and beyond for me, especially the New York Marathon. There's, I'm so grateful for them. I did the Baltimore Running Festival, Corrigan Sports Family, the Corrigan family. They were so kind and amazing to me. It was just utterly ridiculous. Even though I wasn't able to run the Pittsburgh Marathon, PTR, they were just phenomenal to me. The race got canceled at the last minute, but they were and just so many other marathons. People were just phenomenal, and it was such a beautiful experience, and I needed that. I needed to see humanity again. I needed to know that I wasn't the only one.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. I think about 311 Junction out in North Carolina, South Carolina, Big Beach. I'll be doing Big Beach this year again, and they're having a huge event this year. They're adding a 5K and a 10K along with the half and the full marathon. They got Upward Running and Run for God have their graduating classes that's going to be there. So they're expecting a bump in the crowd out there. They're back on their regular trails. They're back at the beach, in and on the beach. They were there last year, but this next year is just going to be phenomenal because they're adding more. They're adding more runs on the actual day, not just that 7K on Saturday. So it's just going to be, I'm looking forward to so much more and so many more. I think about my favorite marathon, the Chicago Marathon, and the race director there, man, I just, you see the love of Chicago in a way that you pretty much probably don't see it any other time of the year with all that they got going on in Chicago. But that community comes together strong that day. And I know I'm forgetting some other races, but everybody in that, and when I say every, I mean everyone of the races that I did was the race directors, the races, they were just phenomenal in helping me and just being there for me.
Yeah, I find they're very supportive. So I wanted to touch back on, you talked about you focused on the kids from St. Jude's. They don't have a choice. And that's my motivation, my why. Why am I doing this? Why am I running now? I was that sick kid, and it does make a difference. All that money to support the background research for the cures. I mean, we wouldn't have those drugs today without all the investments people have made. And in your book, you say ego rarely pushes you beyond your limits, or the quest for accolades or attention just isn't enough to drive people to complete a difficult project. It's these intrinsic things like hope and determination that pushes you through that wall at mile 20. And those aren't the things that you work on in the gym. Those are the things that get you to the gym. I love that. I have this lofty goal to raise $1 million for medical research, and I'm at the very start of that. And I'm here. I'm in the podcast. I'm doing it. I'm hoping it works.
Yes. And it will. There's enough money out there. You just got to make it known. You just have to ask. And when I was doing the St. Jude, and I still raise money for charities with the books and everything when I go speak or when I go to an event, and people help and donate and give. But I would have people that literally was how long you gonna be begging for money? How long you
I
gonna be
know.
this and how long you gonna be that? And I asked them, I said, have you donated already? And they say
Right.
no. I said, well, until you donate, I'm gonna keep asking. And
I
guess
love
what?
it.
They never donate. So I'm gonna keep asking.
Yeah, you got
But
to keep
it's
asking.
amazing that there are people out there that they're afraid to move beyond what they can do. I
Hmm.
remember talking in Ottawa race weekend marathon, and I talked about there's a difference between stopping because you're inconvenienced with the pain. You're
Right.
stopping because you're tired, you're exhausted, you're this, you're that. And I remember telling some athletes that with the pain that I'm experience in my glute, I say, well, my leg won't go no more when I can't move because of it.
Yeah.
I said, that's different than conceding to something that hadn't stopped you
Yeah.
because you're inconvenient mentally.
Hmm. Yeah.
And,
Your
and
your your quest changed.
yeah. And that I said, I wish, and here's the thing, right? Because I was already doing it before the shooting. Like when somebody asked me to do a marathon, and I was like, well, what's a marathon? And they said 26.2 miles. And I said, I just ran that on my long run this past weekend. And I told them, they said, well, what's the longest run you've ever done? I said, I did 38 miles. And they said, you
Yes.
did 38 miles. What possessed you to do 38 miles? I said, I ran out to
Hmm.
Katy from where I live. I ran out to Katy to my mom's house. And I said, and I ran back home. I said, so that, it wasn't what possessed me. I said, I could do it. And I said, I was at the end and I remember calling a friend of mine and I was talking to her and I was like, hey, I want you to stay on the phone with me while I talk in. I said, because I'm starting to cramp real bad. And she was like, what do you do? I said, I ran out to my mom's house and I'm back in Terry Hershey Park. I said, I'm almost to the Beltway. And she said, you did what? Because she knew where my mom lived. I said,
Right.
yeah. And she knew where I lived. And she was like, Paz. That's what they call me, Paz, Paz. You got to stop doing this. And I was like, I got to figure out what my breaking point is. And I
Hmm.
think I found it, and it was 38 miles.
Yeah.
And so then when I was preparing for my 100 miler that I was going to run before the shooting, I did a run out at this park called Cypress Creek, the mountain bike trails, which is more technical than Terry Hershey. And when I tell you, I did 4 loops of 10 miles, and I had people meet me at the different loops. But 2 of the loops I did by myself. But when I averaged out those 40 miles, it was at a pace of 7 minutes and 2 seconds.
Wow.
And
That's
I was
great.
like, yeah. I said, I'm going to be ready for this 50 miler. Because,
Yeah.
by that time, I'm just like, and people kept asking me, how do you train? And I tell them I don't. It's a lifestyle.
Right.
You don't do any CrossFit. You don't do none of that. You don't. Are you sick? I was like, I tell people, you run those trails, they're going to teach you to run right. I said, because the first time you fall, you ain't going to want to fall no more.
Yeah. Yeah. You're doing something that you like doing.
Yeah.
And sure, yeah, you got some help. You you got some advice. You knew how to, like you said, you knew what you were doing because you had done sports in school. So you had
Yeah.
an idea and you were out there doing it. And you were doing it because you loved it and it felt good, right?
Yes.
Made you feel strong, makes me feel strong. Um,
And I push my limits.
and you push your limits. So I want to kind of wrap this up on that. You talked about you have to, in your book, you have to be willing to fail to transform. You have to push those limits because if you're not pushing yourself to the point where you go, oh, you know what, maybe this is my limit. You're never going to find your next limit. You're never going to be able to go beyond that limit. So, what is limiting you now won't limit you later. You have to learn and grow, develop, emerge, discover, and celebrate the lives and what your dreams are made of. You said each step is a point in your transformational journey that requires you to challenge yourself to run farther and faster than you thought possible. It's challenging yourself with a goal or quest to do what you never imagined possible. It's becoming the best person you can be. And the next line that I absolutely love says, this requires incredible energy and power that you have within you to break through those concrete walls of comfort, compliance, and conformity. And that's how you challenge yourself, transform your spirit, and set your mind to finish strong, no matter what the goal is.
No matter whether it's sports, whether it's work, marriage, family, playing an instrument, I mean, whatever it may be. It's a man once told me, and by the way, his name was Aaron Williams. He's a counselor here in the Houston, Texas area. But when I first got saved and started going to a church, I met this gentleman, and he told me, he said, many people appreciate excellence when they see it, but very few are willing to pay the price to become it.
Right.
And that has never departed my memory since. And it's been almost 30 years. And here's what I take with that is that if you want to be great at anything, you got to be a great failure.
Okay, I like that.
Honestly, it's and the principle is biblical, right? God never uses anybody greatly till he first break them greatly.
Yeah, it's kind of like stumbling around the marathon course. You have to learn how to fall. You don't keep hurting yourself. I started wearing gloves on those.
Yeah. And the greatest skyscrapers, I mean, you look at the buildings that they built over in Dubai.
Yeah.
And you look at them and you're like, wow, that is gorgeous. And you're looking at what's above ground, but what about what's beneath?
Yeah.
It's like icebergs.
Foundations.
Yeah. You see icebergs, you're only seeing a portion, probably about a third, 2/3 of it is up under. What that you don't see, that's more amazing. And so when we see a Michael Jordan, when we see somebody like a Usain Bolt, or when we see someone like Serena Williams, or we listen to a Mozart or someone of that nature, what you're seeing is just the tip of the iceberg. What was it up that you didn't see?
Yeah.
And that's what people don't want to embrace.
You didn't see the work that they put into it. You didn't see how much they had to train and educate themselves to get where they are, the struggles that they had.
Well, not just that, but how many shots did they have to miss in order for you to see the shots that they made that just amazes you?
Yeah. Yeah.
How much failure to see the excellence. And I think until you embrace your failures, you'll never embrace your excellence. You'll never become the person that you dream about. And so one of the questions that people ask me, were you following Christ before the shooting took place? And I tell them, yes.
Yeah.
I was totally 100% fully sold out to the Lord. And they kind of like, then, why the transformation? It was a stage, right? I was fully there. But now it's like one of those things, you can't tell me anything about what I'm doing. I know for a fact that I am on the path that God placed me on. And there's just absolutely nothing because of the failure, because I've been there, that I've been in that place where nobody's watching.
Yeah.
So I'm dreaming about the day that I finish my 100-miler. I'm dreaming about the day that I break 20 minutes on a 5K again, which, by the way, my fastest 5K was 16 minutes and 48 seconds at the age of 45. I didn't even run that when I was in high school.
Oh, wow.
But I'm dreaming about when I can run an hour nonstop again. And I believe I'm gonna do it. Why? Because I got so much failure behind me that it's fueling my future.
You're learning from it. You're learning what your failure was about and how you can make adjustments. So you make progress on that. You will run and serve. This idea of transformation is to become what you ultimately desire. And it's work to get through that difficult stages of growth. And
Yes.
so kudos to you, unstoppable Aaron Burros.
Well, thank you for being unstoppable yourself. And it's
Wow.
only because of your unstoppable self that I am on unstoppable.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. I mean, that's why. I mean, I still have this little voice, this little drive that pushes me to say, you haven't done enough. There's more you can do. Why are you just hanging out at home when you could be helping some other people? You know, what's your purpose? What's your next thing that you're doing? It's like, oh God, I just want to lay on the couch. I want to go skiing. Want to go for a run. Like, well,
Yes.
there's more. There's more you can be doing. So yeah, so I'm doing that. I'm finally pulled the trigger to launch this. Oh, sorry for the insensitive analogy there. I finally decided to make my dream come true because I've thought out of this for a long, long time about raising money for medical research, and now I've gotten started. Finally got my donation button working on my website.
Well, we're going to have to partner and help raise money because that's what I'm using the book Metal Monday for. That book is a gift from God. It's an act of grace. Like I tell people, I didn't write it; it wrote me, and I do not put a price on it. When I do my events, I tell people to give whatever's on their heart to give. Be a cheerful giver, and that's another way I challenge people is because I tell people if running has done so much for you, how come it hasn't affected the way that you affect people with running? And I tell people at some point, your running has to be a tool that you use to impact the lives of others. It can't just be about you. If running has been that good to you, if you benefited from running that much, why aren't you using it to impact lives?
Yeah.
And so I challenge my friends, I challenge people every weekend when I'm at events, I challenge people throughout the week. Live generously. And because the happiness that people are wanting that's fleeting is because they're focused on themselves. But if they're focused on others, not only will they have happy moments and happiness with happenstances, but they're going to have joy so that when life is not at its best, that joy is going to sustain you. I remember my doctor, no, I'm sorry, not my doctor. Somebody asked me, you know, when do you think you're going to have joy? And I said, when do I think I'm going to have it? Yeah, when will you think you experience joy again? And I told them, what makes you think I don't have joy?
Right.
And they said, just looking at your circumstances and what you're going through, there's no way that you have joy. I said, listen, I have joy. It's the joy of the Lord that is my strength. It's the joy that has gotten me this far and that is sustaining me. I said, if it wasn't for joy, if it wasn't for what God had given me, there's no way I would have been sustained through what I've gone through. And now that joy is bubbling over, it's back out. I mean, you've heard me out on the course. Who else stands at a marathon start and finish line for 7 hours, cheering people when they start and cheering the last person when they come in?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And yeah, I'll be hoarse the next day, but I won't be hoarse until that last person comes through.
Yeah, I
And
love that.
why? Because I know what it's like. I
Mm-hmm.
know what it's like, and I want to celebrate you. I tell people all the time when I'm out and about this and that, and people got accomplishments, I tell them, man, make sure you keep me informed. Make sure you invite me. Make sure if I'm available, I will come. I would come cheer you on. I come, and people will be like, you will? Yes, I will. Why? Because you're that important to me.
You said,
And I mean it.
your quest changed over time. Instead of
Yes.
becoming Metal Monday, it more became People Monday, Person Monday. And you
Yeah,
turned
people are
into
my metal Mondays. That's what I use. That's my
the
slogan.
the hashtag running service. I'll be your Person Tuesday. How's that? Today is
Yes.
Tuesday. You were transformed into the running servant and became unstoppable in so many ways. So we'll wrap it up. It's been again joy talking to you. I know you made this choice to be joyful, choice to focus on the blessings and the positives that you have in your life, because they're there. Even though part of your life is still in pain and you're dealing with that, you still have a lot of joy, a lot of fun to give, a lot of energy. Helping people helps you. And I'm glad you made it, Aaron. I'm glad you're here in the world.
I'm glad I'm still here too. My quest isn't over.
Right. Let's continue this quest. I'm Sally Dahlquist.
I like that. We got to put that on a T-shirt for you.
Yeah. I would like to know if other people have heard these voices. Have other people heard any of these other voices that spurred them on to do something where it was just kind of unexplained, unusual? And what's the outcome of that? What's the trajectory of your life after you've heard these voices? I mean, for you, Aaron, it's just been dramatic. Stop running drugs, lose weight, start running, get back off your feet after you had this, after you were shot, get back up and keep doing it and live the joy that you have in your life. So I appreciate you.
And share it.
Okay. Thanks for tuning in to this episode. I hope you enjoyed listening to it and learned a few things. Well, the people that we talked about today, they don't quit, and neither should you. Whether you're running marathons, rebuilding your life, or just searching for that next spark, you are more capable than you think. If this episode hits home, share it, subscribe, leave a review. Let's build this community together of relentless people who refuse to stop moving forward. And if you want to do something even bigger, support the mission. We're raising $1 million for medical research, and your support makes a difference. Check out our website at unstoppablestoriesthatmove.com. I'm Sally Hed Dahlquist. Until next time, keep running, keep pushing, and never stop proving to yourself what's possible.